Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. It is a Tuesday edition of the show. We're going to talk a little bit more about the newest quarterback in Tampa Bay. That is Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker Mayfield is not necessarily the starter, but he is in the competition with Kyle Trask for it. So, we'll discuss today a little bit how he fits into the Bucs offense, which obviously still has a pretty talented group despite the amount of losses that the Bucs had last year. Mike Evans is on the roster. Chris Godwin, a fully healthy Chris Godwin, which is super important. Russell Gage stays above the chopping block and agrees to a restructure of his contract as he returns. And it looks like Rachaad White is going to be the number one guy in the backfield for the Buccaneers, depending on what they do in the draft coming up at the end of the month of April. So a lot to talk about on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. I'm riding solo for the moment. Scott Reynolds has a couple of different things to address right now. He should be joining the show about halfway through or whenever he can get on. So I'm going to be your host for the start of it. Appreciate everybody joining today, and we'll keep this pretty open-ended as well. Any questions that anyone has, of course, we'll get to as Tom starts off by saying go Bucs. We love the Pewter people in the chat. We'll get into really any questions, any topics you want to get into, and then talk a little bit more about Baker Mayfield and what he can provide for the Buccaneers offense, because I think it's really interesting with Baker. We talked a little bit about this on yesterday's show, but I think it's important to repeat as well. You're not getting the 2018 Baker when he was a rookie and he's screaming at the University of Kansas because they're not doing it. As Tom says, take a shot, Matt. I can't take a shot right now. It's 4 p.m. That's maybe more for like a Thursday show. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, Tom. But what I think is important for Baker is, he's not the guy that's saying F you to the world and everything like that. And right away, and also, I think while he said himself, it's not a humbling experience for what he went through last season with playing for 3 different teams in 2022. He didn't really technically play for the Browns, but he was on the Browns at the beginning of the year and got traded. So I think you're kind of getting a little bit of the moxie that got Baker into the league with a little more mature Baker. And we kind of expand upon that a little bit later. I did write a story today about why the personality of Baker Mayfield, though very polarizing and understandably for a couple of different reasons, why his attitude isn't going to hurt the Bucs. And it's actually something that the Bucs could use this season. But we got a super chat right off the bat. So thank you, Philip Stegman, for the $1.99 super chat. Philip says, what's your over-under on wins with Baker and or Trask? Good question. Very early, and obviously you still got the draft to go. We know the Bucs opponents this year. They do have a first-place schedule, but I don't buy too much into the whole, you have a tougher schedule this year, because teams change so much year in and year out. So let me pull up all the opponents for the Bucs and who they're playing this season. Obviously, we know in the division who they're going to be playing. That's the Saints, the Panthers, and the Atlanta Falcons. Let's see. Bucs 2023 schedule, their opponents. Once again, appreciate the super chat from Philip. I saw Mark, you have one as well. We'll get to yours, get to a couple others as well. So the home games for the Bucs in 2023. Falcons, Panthers, the Bears, the Lions, who have seemed to be really winning this offseason. The Lions, the Jaguars, Saints, Eagles, and Titans. A little tough there. And then away, obviously, everyone in the division. The Bills, the Packers, who will look very different this year. The Houston Texans, the Colts, the Vikings, and the 49ers. All right, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can see the Bucs pretty much, I hate to say it, but pretty much getting like the same record that they had last season with about 7 or 8, maybe even 9 wins on the season, What I think is most important for Tampa Bay, obviously you don't want to overlook anybody on the schedule, but if you can go like 4-2 in the division, really dominate the NFC South, I think that'll take you a long way in terms of reaching the postseason. And let's remember that Bucs defense, they can really hang with everyone. I know they struggled in the playoffs last year, but you had 10 games where they only allowed 21 points or less. They went 7-3 in those games. You bring that type of defense into the playoffs, they get more turnovers this season than they had last season. It's going to be all on the offense this year. I think we get that notion. With Dave Canales, whoever's going to be the quarterback, whether it's Baker or Kyle Trask. And I'm not anointing Baker Mayfield the quarterback just yet. I know it might sound a little contradictory with the name of this title, but Bucs fans, let's remember, and the Pewter people, we love all the Pewter people. We've been talking about Kyle Trask for the last 2 months, all right? Baker is the flavor of the week right now. He just signed with the team this week. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Baker Mayfield this week. And then once OTAs gets around and we see Kyle Trask practicing along with Baker Mayfield and whoever decides to be the third quarterback, then we'll talk about everyone. But right now, Baker's new in the building. He's hot. He's fresh. So that's what we're going to talk about. It's nothing on Kyle Trask by any means. Mark with the comment, hey, Matt, we need another quarterback. Your thoughts on Hooker, and why not keep Ryan Griffin as a fourth? I would not be shocked at all if Ryan Griffin is back. He's the longest tenured Buccaneers quarterback. He's great with helping prepare the other quarterbacks. He was on the practice squad all of last season. Another locker room guy, gets along with a lot of players on the team. I know he likes playing pickleball with a lot of different guys on the roster as well. I totally see Ryan Griffin coming back. I really like Hendon Hooker. I was obsessed is not the right word, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching Hendon Hooker at Tennessee last season. The game against Alabama, of course, everybody remembers. I love the mix of mobility and what he's able to do with his arm. He struggled against Georgia, but really, who didn't last season with the exception of Ohio State? It's the Bucs as a team. So if Hendon Hooker was in last year's draft, this would be perfect, or even the same draft as when the Bucs took Kyle Trask in 2021, because he's a bit of an experiment and a bit unknown because of coming off a serious injury. Now, he did meet with the Bucs formally. That is important to bring up. It's just really tough when the Bucs are in a very tight window. They have to win now, at least if Todd Bowles wants to keep his job. They have to win now, so they can't waste a third-round pick on Hendon Hooker and hope, okay, he can be the quarterback next year, because then you're pretty much rooting for Kyle and now Baker to fail. And that doesn't really help anyone in the organization. The Glazers want to win. Jason Light wants to win. Todd Bowles wants to keep his job. So if Hendon Hooker can fall to the 5th round, I'm all in. Absolutely go for it. I just don't think he'll be there. And with the number of holes that the Bucs have to address on the roster, and I get it, they re-signed Jamel Dean, so corner, while still important, isn't necessarily priority number one, but you still have left tackle or right tackle, depending on what they do with Tristan Wirfs. You have to figure out that situation. You have to add another safety into the mix. I know they just added Chase Edmonds, but another running back, the tight end situation. There's just a lot of holes to fill. And now that you have 2 quarterbacks under contract and Kyle Trask you have for a couple more seasons anyway, I like Hendon Hooker. The Bucs they can't take a guy that they're going to redshirt within the first 3 rounds. They have to get a guy that is going to contribute right away. Maybe not necessarily the the starter right away, but even second string tight end, something like that, for example. So I don't know. I like him. It doesn't fit perfectly for the Bucs at the moment. Michael Perkins, Bucs better get him out of the pocket. The Panthers never did. It was brutal to watch as a Baker fanboy. Well, Michael, appreciate you for the comment, and hope you enjoy watching Baker this season. That's probably the number one thing when we talk about how's Baker going to fit in this offense with Dave Canales. And sure, we're still trying to figure out exactly what Dave Canales is going to run and what it means for Baker and, the entire offense as a unit. I just think, and I know it's a new offense coordinator, but it's a brand new offense. There's going to be more QB waggles. There's going to be more getting rid of the ball in a smarter but quicker sense. So I think Baker's ability to be mobile, I mean, you watch him throughout college, he could sling it in the pocket, and in the NFL when he was thriving and at his best, he can stay in the pocket and throw it. But I think, again, because Baker's like 6 feet, 6'1", get him out of the pocket. Don't let him throw when you have 4 or 5 guys in front of him that are all 6'4", 6'5", just getting their hands up and trying to knock down the ball. I think the QB waggles, the play action rollouts are going to be super, super important for Baker Mayfield this season. So I'm with you. Don't keep him stationary, get him on the move. So I think that'll be really important. Mike Reynolds says, I need a Baker progressive commercial with the pirate ship. Mike, absolutely. I mean, if Baker's going to come here, and he's a polarizing figure anyway, because of the fact that he was the number 1 pick, because of some of the comments he's made in the past and winning the Heisman and having an attitude, lean into it, man. Like, embrace Tampa as much as you possibly can. I'm sure Progressive is already coming up with the commercials, because for the Browns, it was that he was staying in the stadium. So, I mean, that's already a hilarious clip right there in the moment. If you get something with Baker on the pirate ship, maybe you bring Captain Fear with them or another pirate. I think it'd be really interesting. So you're onto something there. John V, I believe, predicting the over-under says 6 wins for the Bucs. Very much could be a reality, but it remains to be seen. Let's see everything play out first. We don't even know if Baker's going to be the starting quarterback. Funkle Dave with the comment says, shout out to Mark Cook, just because he was a big part of the Pewter Report back in the NAM. Go Bucs. Also, Baker is going to put up some great games. Bet. Funkle Dave, thank you very much for that comment. I love and miss Mark a lot. I think about him all the time, but funny enough, earlier I was playing some music and Walking in Memphis came on. And for those that don't know that song, it's all about Elvis, and Mark Cook was a huge fan of Elvis. And so as soon as that song came on, I immediately thought of Mark. So I appreciate that comment so much. I miss Mark. And, he's a legend in Bucs media and, of course, in the Pewter Report, or in Pewter Report history. So shout out to Mark. As far as Baker, I don't want to anoint him the starter just yet. I think what's important when it comes to Baker Mayfield is a couple of things. One, he is coming off of, a torn labrum injury. You have to rehab. He's been in so many different systems, so many different offenses. He never had that stability. That's exactly what Baker talked about when he met with the Bucs media yesterday. So I don't think he necessarily got a fair shake. Now, he's made a ton of mistakes himself, a lot of turnovers. I don't necessarily think – I know everyone on paper at the time was like, the Browns are going to be sick. They traded for Odell Beckham a couple of seasons ago when that went on. But I don't know if Odell, the guy that always wants the ball, will probably get in your ear if you're not getting the ball. Sometimes for a young quarterback, that's not always the best situation. But, it remains to be seen for Baker. I think he's just going to forget about last season, forget about all the moves and stuff like that. I don't foresee the Bucs trading Baker this year, so he knows at least I'm going to be in Tampa for one more season. And ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to announce that joining us on the show, I told you he was going to be on at some point. It is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, how are you doing?
Doing good, Matt, and Pewter people. How are you? I think I love today's topic. Right, we've spent some time talking about Kyle Trask before there was any other quarterback on the roster, and we'll continue to talk about Kyle Trask. I don't want Buccaneer fans, I don't want you Pewter people out there thinking that we have a dog in this fight. We don't. We want to see the best quarterback emerge from this quarterback competition for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's what the team wants. It's what Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield want. And at the same time, though, we're going to call it like we see it. And the reason why we're talking about Baker Mayfield right now is twofold. Number one, he's the newest quarterback on the roster. He's the other guy outside of Kyle Trask who we've talked about since the Senior Bowl when he was the only guy on the team.
Scott, all the Pewter people can vouch for me. I said 10 minutes before you were even on, I said, we're not knocking Kyle Trask. I said, Baker Mayfield is the flavor of the week right now.
That's right.
We've been talking about Kyle Trask for the last 2 months since the season ended and Tom Brady retired. We talked a lot about Kyle Trask. Excuse me. Baker just signed here. So naturally, we're all going to talk about Baker Mayfield. He's the flavor of the week. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the starter. He's just hot in the streets right now. And sometimes you go with the subject that everybody's talking about. We're all about ratings and entertainment, and that's what Baker's going to bring, at least for this week.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other thing, too, is he's got experience. That's something Kyle Trask doesn't. And it doesn't mean he is going to win the job automatically, because I think if Trask has an ace up his sleeve, and we'll see how he adapts to the NFL game, right? In the preseason, I want to be careful with that. I didn't see a whole bunch to get excited about in the preseason, either this year or his rookie season, just because he had a couple of touchdowns and 4 interceptions. At the same time, he didn't throw the ball to Chris Godwin. He didn't throw the ball to Mike Evans. He didn't have the starters in the offensive line protecting him. And he didn't really play with first-string running back either. So I preface all of this by saying we'll see what Kyle Trask has to offer. But if there is an ace up his sleeve, going back to his days as a starter at Florida, right? And we know that Todd Bowles and Dave Canales are both on the record saying they don't want a quarterback to turn the ball over, right? And you go back to that season at Florida that got Kyle Trask drafted by the Buccaneers. He completed 68.9% of his passes for 4,283 yards, 43 touchdowns, Matt, 8 interceptions, Pewter people. Okay, so that's a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That's really, really good. All right. In the NFL, if you can be 3-to-1, like that's a Pro Bowl kind of quarterback. And so I think if Kyle Trask can limit the number of interceptions that he has in training camp and in preseason, trust me, Todd Bowles and Dave Canales, they're going to go with the guy who doesn't lose them the game, right? They're more conservative in their approach. They want a playmaker, but trust me, Todd Bowles was on this roster, Matt, and you and I covered the 2019 Buccaneers. Jameis Winston, for as much as he gave away 33 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. As a result, the record was 7-9 for the Buccaneers. We know what happens the next year. The roster's the same. They switch out the quarterbacks. They bring in Tom Brady and Super Bowl. So I think.
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that, right? Kyle Trask has got to throw fewer interceptions, make fewer mistakes than Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield, to his credit, he's got to come in and prove that he can be safer with the football. That was, that's what helped him have a really good season in 2020 and help lead the Browns to the playoffs for the first time since 2002. That's just a long time. It's almost like a Buccaneer type drought, right, for the Browns. And during that season, he threw 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, right? That's the kind of season Baker Mayfield would have to have for the Buccaneers. The year before, 2019, 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. That was Jameis Winston-like right there. As a matter of fact, that year, Baker Mayfield and Jameis Winston went head-to-head in Tampa, and Baker Mayfield –
that was a great game.
Just about won the game, but had a couple of turnovers. It went into overtime. The Buccaneers won that game. But and in 2021, he had 17 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, much closer together. So we're not knocking Kyle Trask. We're not praising Baker Mayfield. We're just pointing out that, like you said, Matt, we're looking at Baker Mayfield's strengths, how he's going to fit into this offense. What would it take for him to win the starting job? And to be fair, Kyle Trask, if he doesn't turn the ball over, Matt, he's got just as good a shot as anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle Trask is kind of what a lot of people were hoping if Jacoby Brissett came to the Bucs. That's a little bit what Kyle Trask is going to bring. He's going to hold on to the football. He's going to be a little conservative. He took shots down the field in preseason. They just didn't necessarily connect on a lot of them. And granted, he was throwing to like Scotty Miller. If he's throwing to Mike Evans, a little bit taller, has a little bit of a better ability to get the football.
Bigger
I get
catch radius than Scotty
bigger
Miller,
catch
right?
radius. And I get some Pewter people and others have said, well, Baker had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and guys like that. Odell Beckham got injured a fair amount when he was in Cleveland. Like, it never really worked out. People forget, like, it didn't really work out for Baker in Cleveland halfway because he was injured a lot of the times. And I would also counter, and you brought up some of the stats, Scott, his rookie year, and then in 2019 and 2020, he threw for 27, 22, a lot of 20s here, and 26 touchdowns. So he was getting the ball into the end zone. So it wasn't Aaron Rodgers' MVP numbers or Tom Brady's numbers that he's putting up in his first 2 seasons with the Buccaneers. But he was certainly, efficient to a degree. And another thing that we haven't even really gotten into yet, the reason why he doesn't have a crazy amount of passing yards or touchdowns, the Browns, as bad as they've been, they've always had
Nick
a
Chubb,
good run
Kareem
game.
Hunt.
Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I love Nick Chubb, man. I've had him on my fantasy team the last 3 years. Did some great things. This is the Rashad White era, baby, and that's going to change. You heard Baker talk about it yesterday. But we do have a super chat. If you super chat us, you will cut the line.
Felipe,
so
appreciate
Felipe
it.
wants to talk some draft. I'm down with that. Bucs big board should be Devin Witherspoon. Miles Murphy, Joey Porter Jr., Darnell Wright. Can't ever have enough good corners / pass rushers.
Yep. Well, I'll comment on those names real quick. Devin Witherspoon is not going to be anywhere near Tampa Bay. He's the top corner in this draft. I would be shocked if he gets outside of the top 10. I would be really shocked if he makes it to even 15, but he won't make it to number 19. He's that good. Miles Murphy, I'm not a huge fan. Interesting to note, Jason Light's never drafted a Clemson player. Couple schools he hasn't drafted from.
Nolan Turner came close.
Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan, a couple teams that powerhouses that throw players into the draft, but schools that traditionally the Bucs have stayed away from. So I'm just not a huge Miles Murphy fan, and I don't know if the Bucs are going to draft a pass rusher in the first round, and here's why. They're paying $18 million for Shaq Barrett. They're expecting him to come back, hoping, fingers crossed, he comes back with a good, clean bill of health and coming off that Achilles injury, even though he'll turn 30 this year. For that money, they're penciling him in as a starter opposite Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Another big year for JTS. Matt, 4 sacks again. Played more snaps. Didn't get any more sacks. Got some more pressures, but I think that was a function of more snaps. But they have a first-round draft pick invested in him, and this is going to be kind of a make-or-break year for him. It's not going to preclude the Buccaneers from drafting an edge rusher, but we'll see. Joey Porter Jr., I love the prospect. The only problem, Matt, is can he play the slot? I think he was mostly an outside corner.
Yeah,
that's the case for Jamel Dean. That's the case for Carlton Davis. They just paid one corner $14.8 million. They paid the other corner $13 million. If you draft a cornerback like Joey Porter Jr., and he's not going to play the slot, he's going to be on the bench. So that's a bad waste of a first-round pick. You're going to have to get a guy in the first round, and there's not many guys that can really be functional in the slot, unless you're looking at a safety like Brian Branch, who played in the slot almost exclusively at Alabama. Darnell Wright, that's a player that you like, Matt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
right?
I'll comment on everyone.
From Tennessee.
Yeah, offensive tackle from Tennessee. Huge guy, 6'6", and his stock seems to be growing every single day. I'll just comment on everyone real quick and then get back to Wright. Witherspoon, I agree, not going to be there. Miles Murphy, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on Miles Murphy, but Joey Porter Jr., I was very surprised that the Bucs didn't even meet with him at the combine. I thought he would have been definitely somebody that they had met with, but that doesn't always mean that they're not going to pick him just because they didn't meet with him at the combine. But I was very surprised by that, and the logic doesn't make any sense. Outside corner, doesn't play the slot. You're going to draft him to play the slot? Yeah, agreed. But Darnell Wright, so I really like him. He going in, you mentioned like Broderick Jones and Paris from Ohio State. Those are kind of like the top 2 guys at offensive tackle. But Darnell Wright just kept getting better and better, like each game. The Senior Bowl, he did really well. I mean, he went up against Will Anderson, the edge rusher from Alabama.
He did.
And did a superb job against him. Did not allow a sack. One of the only guys that, did very well against him.
That's right.
Played really well when Tennessee went up against Georgia. I know that was a tough game for Tennessee in general, but he allowed one pressure, not a sack. He allowed one pressure
Yeah.
in that game. He mostly played on the right side in his career at Tennessee, but he
He's got
also
history
played
on the
on
left, though.
He
Yeah.
does have history on the left. He's just a huge hulk of a person where if he gets engaged with you, you are done. You're not getting around him. I think he's good at mirroring people. The footwork needs to improve a little bit, which of course is a little scary for an offensive tackle.
Yep.
But I just think with the strength and the size that he has, if he's there, and the fact that he's done, obviously the tape is a lot of the factor. The fact that he's gone up against the best competition in college football and held his own. I just really liked him, and that's why I had him going with my first pick for the Bucs. So it gives them a little versatility at the tackle position, depending on what they want to do with
Matt,
with offensive tackle.
In 2020, he played 554 snaps at right tackle, only 14 at left. Then in 2021, he was exclusively a left tackle, 920 snaps, and only gave up 3 sacks. Right, I mean, it's going from right to left. Only gave up 3 sacks that year. Only 1 quarterback hit, 13 hurries. Then played exclusively on the right side last year, 892 snaps. So he's got a ton of SEC experience. 0 sacks allowed last year at Tennessee. Only 2 quarterback hits and 6 hurries. He's a big, massive guy, as you talked about. He probably has to work on his run blocking a little bit, but I think his stock is on the rise. He's a player that is not going to get out of the second round for sure, and we've seen him in some first round mocks. I would not be opposed to Darnell Wright or even Anton Harrison, who is Wright and Harrison.
On him.
Those 2 guys are kind of battling for that third tackle spot because I'm with you. I think that Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones from Ohio State and Georgia, respectively, probably the first 2 tackles off the board. But it just makes sense for this team to draft a safety or a tackle in the first round, just because those are really big positions of need. I'm not saying that they have to or that they should, but if they did, it makes sense.
I really wanted to have Broderick Jones to the Bucs in my mock draft, but I was just like, he's just not going to be there at 19.
Yeah.
I'd be doing a disservice if I'd be fake if I was like, oh, Broderick Jones is going to go to the Bucs. But I agree. Offensive tackle or safety. Obviously, talking about the safeties with versatility that can play on the back end, play in the slot as well. We've been talking a lot about versatility and variety, and that, of course, makes me think of our official sponsor at pewterreport.com, Celsius Energy Drinks, because they have a variety of flavors. You see the Arctic Peach and Tropical Vibes on the screen there. They have some new flavors as well, the Fantasy Vibe and the Sparkling Lemon Lime. You really can't go wrong with any of these flavors. You got some original ones as well. The Sparkling Kiwi Guava, the Sparkling Watermelon, Original Orange, Wild Berry. So a ton of awesome flavors all over the place. Fuji Apple Pear. Cannot go wrong. Kiwi Guava as well. 7 essential vitamins. No crash. No post-energy drink jitters that you might get with a couple of different products. If you want to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, go to the store locator on Celsius.com. Punch in your address and find out where you can get one near you. It's super helpful. We used it when we were at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Takes you right to your local convenience store, 7-Eleven, or as I like to say, and as the Kansas State Wildcats will find out when they go to Madison Square Garden this week, a bodega. Go to your bodega, start picking out your favorite flavors of Celsius. We love when the Pewter people send us photos or let us know in the chats what their favorite flavor is. We love when you guys send us that information. And if you want to start getting it in bulk, go to Amazon, do the subscribe and save. I'd recommend getting the variety pack because why have one flavor of Celsius when you can have multiple flavors of Celsius? And variety is the spice of life. So go to Amazon, subscribe and save, have it sent to your house or apartment. Monthly, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want it. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Scott, I'm wondering, with Dave Canales as the offensive coordinator, he said a lot of great things about Kyle Trask in his introductory press conference. We haven't heard him talk about Baker Mayfield just yet, but that's okay. Baker just joined the team.
Yeah.
We talked yesterday about that it's a pretty level playing field because nobody has played in Dave Canales' offense before. But I'm curious how much of an advantage if Baker has one at all because of the 5 weeks that he spent with the Los Angeles Rams and the fact that he's already coming out being like, yeah, I spoke to Dave Canales and we're going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Am I reading into anything there that Baker actually has a slight advantage, or is it just, I mean, he was only there for a week, man. It's like, come on.
I mean, he does have some exposure to that system and what that entails, right? I think he probably ran some more quarterback bootlegs, some waggles in those 5 games with Los Angeles. And I haven't studied the film or anything. I'm just making some assumptions based on the type of offense and the scheme that they run. And Baker certainly has some mobility, right? He's not necessarily going to be a guy that is not a running quarterback, right? But he can scramble, and so I think that that mobility, being able to maneuver in the pocket, roll outside the pocket, I think that is something that can be beneficial there. I think he probably has a little bit more wiggle than Kyle Trask. I know Kyle Trask has spent the last couple of years working on his body in terms of losing some weight, being a little bit more nimble and quick in the pocket. Those are some of the things he's worked on fundamentally. And you look at Baker Mayfield in terms of some of those scrambles that he's had in his career. He had a 35-yard run as a rookie, an 18-yarder in 2019, a 28-yarder in 2020. And then the last couple of years, a 14-yarder, a 17-yarder. So he can scoot a little bit. He's not going to be called upon to run, quarterback draws or anything like that, like Lamar Jackson. But at the same time, Kyle Trask in that Florida offense ran some quarterback power. So he can do it too. It's just that some of those quarterback power plays that they ran at Florida, those were more kind of, off tackle with lead blocker and wasn't so much getting outside the pocket and running waggles and bootlegs. But I think that Baker has the skill set, the mobility to kind of thrive in this offense, which features some misdirection. And I think that's important. He probably got a little bit of taste of that out there in LA.
And I think the whole other caveat to this, or really an important factor, is not just not turning the ball over and making the right throws. And I'm most curious to see, and I asked Baker Mayfield about this, playing with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like if Mike Evans or Godwin or, everyone else, Rashad White, Russell Gage, if one of them builds more chemistry with the other based on just, I don't know, sometimes some things just click with certain players.
Yeah.
That might be like maybe not the final decision. I don't think Mike Evans goes to Todd Bowles and say, hey, I like Kyle Trask more. We're going with Kyle Trask.
Yeah.
But I am curious to see that type of chemistry because it needs to be built one way or another. And we saw so much how great of a chemistry at one point in 2020 and 2021 that Mike had with Tom Brady, particularly in the red zone, why they were smashing records left and right. And then last year, all of a sudden, poof, it just went away and they couldn't hit the deep ball down the field. So I'm really curious how that's going to work. I don't know, Scott, if you see for just their skill set, like if Mike could jive better with Kyle or Baker, or same with Chris Godwin. I don't necessarily know at this moment because we've seen so little of Kyle Trask. Of both, both really, especially in Tampa, obviously.
Yeah.
But man, like that's one of the storylines I'm most excited to watch because that could really factor into who wins the job.
I think it's a great point, Matt. It really is. The rapport, and you know what? The film's going to say that, right? Mike's not going to be going to Dave Canales or Todd Bowles and saying this or that about, this quarterback or that. The film's going to say that. The practice tape is going to be apparent. And can you hit these guys? The thing about Mike is, if you go back at last year, this offense was so bad. And I mean, I'm not telling you, Pewter people, anything you don't know. We all saw it. There was only one receiver that had more than 10 yards per catch last year. That was Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. And as bad as the year was with Evans, right? Yeah, as bad as it was with only 6 touchdowns. Trust me, there are wide receivers in this league that'd love to catch 6 touchdowns. It's just not the 12, 13, 14 touchdowns that Mike we're used to seeing him get. But despite not having that rapport with Brady for some reason down the field, all of a sudden it kind of just came to a screeching halt after 2 years, as you said, Matt, of Evans being this deep threat with 13 touchdowns, 14, or in the red zone being a factor. you've got a quarterback now with Baker Mayfield with the arm strength that can really push the ball down the field in a way that Brady kind of did more of in 2020. And we saw Jameis Winston do throughout his career. You go back and look at some of those deep touchdowns from Jameis Winston and Jameis Winston was not the most accurate downfield thrower by any means, but there were a lot of those downfield connections where it was, throw it up to Mike, right? And I think Mike can still go up there and get him at age 29 / going on 30. So to me, I think there's more of an opportunity for Mike, who actually increased his yards per catch last year. I think he went from 14.2 yards per catch in 2021, if my memory serves me correctly, to 14.6. So while everyone else, Godwin, I know Gronk wasn't here, but historically, Russell Gage, was 10-11. He was actually, I think, 8.8 last year, 8.9 yards per catch. So he went down from his career average. But Mike went up. And I think that Baker has got that strong arm to be able to push the ball down the field. There was even a play in Cleveland where he got criticized for it, where he chucked the ball out of the end zone just to kind of show off his arm strength, I think. At least that's what media pundits were saying. When there was a Hail Mary attempt, and he threw the ball about 5 yards through the back of the end zone in a game against Baltimore at halftime. So he didn't even put the ball into play. Maybe he didn't want an interception because that's usually what happens on those Hail Mary types. But he's got plenty of arm strength. I know he had the shoulder injury, but I mean, the guy can sling it. And maybe if there's a knock on Kyle Trask is he puts too much air under the ball sometimes, more of a touch passer. Think more like Brad Johnson, where it's going to be more, he can get the ball 40 yards down the field. It's just going to look a little different, probably a little bit less zip, a little bit more touch. And that's going to require a little bit more accuracy. You got to be able to drop the ball in there rather than rifle it in there. And I think that's one thing, Matt, that I think we're going to be able to see in training camp and even in the OTAs is the difference in arm strength between Trask and Mayfield. And at the end of the day, does it serve as an advantage to Baker Mayfield? I mean, you can have the biggest gun in the world, but if you can't hit the target, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And I think Baker will have the advantage with someone like Mike that is going to go down the field and have those vertical
70
plays
yards
to him.
Right.
But I do kind of think that particularly specifically for someone like Rashad White out of the backfield and Cade Otton, who he'll go down the field too, but he'll be a little bit more on the flat, something like that. That may actually benefit Kyle Trask a little bit more than Baker, who will try to really zip it in. And he does like to sling it into tight pockets every now and there, tight windows, I should say, which sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Chris Godwin, I just think, how we're saying, and Dave Canales has said that it's a quarterback-friendly offense and you can put any quarterback in it. I think Chris Godwin can work with any quarterback. He crushed it with Jameis. He crushed it with Tom Brady. I just think him in the slot, if they want to put him more vertical this season as well, more outside, I think he's going to do absolutely fine because he's Chris Godwin. I see some people in the chats there comparing, Baker to Johnny Manziel because Mike played with Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M.
Well, they were both Brown quarterbacks too, right? They both went to Cleveland.
Yeah, that as well. They both play for the Cleveland Browns. I would absolutely, the day it comes out, if he ever wrote a book, Mike Evans, on playing with Johnny, Jameis, Tom Brady, and then if Baker wins it this year, I would buy that book the second it comes out. It's just funny talking about the history.
And don't forget Josh McCown and Mike Glennon back in 2014, his rookie season. Yeah,
I don't want to discredit them either because they're a factor in Mike's Hall of Fame career and the consecutive 1,000-yard season. So absolutely cannot discredit Josh McCown and Mike Glennon for what they've done.
Yeah, we've got a couple interesting comments here that we want to get to. I think you and I have started a couple of these. I'll put this one up first. Halfback Lou Nichols is good. I drafted him late. I like Lou Nichols. If you don't know who Lou Nichols is, and it's actually spelled correctly, L-E-W, it's not L-O-U. So Flash Gordon, props on that. Lou Nichols is a running back that is coming out of into the draft, played at Central Michigan, and back in 2021, ran for 1,848 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 16 touchdowns. Kind of reminds me of Kareem Hunt. the way he runs. He's 5'10", 220 pounds, very physical guy, can catch the ball very well out of the backfield. Matter of fact, that year, caught 40 passes. That's a lot for a running back in college. 40 passes for 338 yards, averaged a very healthy 8.5 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. So add it all up, he had 18 total touchdowns and was actually college football's all-purpose yardage. Well, not all-purpose, but total offensive leader for a running back. Had over 2,100 yards combined between rushing and receiving. So he also threw three passes for 41 yards. Didn't throw any touchdowns. Didn't throw any picks either. So he can do the halfback option as well. This is a player that last year, and if Central Michigan rings a bell, Sean Murphy-Bunting,
yeah,
Luke Gedeke, right?
We had this from Long Lost Claims. Did you say Central Michigan? Gedeke
Yeah.
SFB flashbacks? No,
yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I'm just telling you, for whatever reason, this school is on the Bucs' radar, good, bad, or indifferent. This is an interesting player. They sent 2 offensive linemen to the NFL, Bernard Raman and then Luke Gedeke. Both of those tackles went to the NFL, and I believe were mid-round picks, second, third-round picks. I know Luke Gedeke was a second-rounder. I think Raman was also a second-rounder, but I'm not sure. But last year, only ran for 601 yards and 6 touchdowns. Their offensive line was kind of in shambles. It started over from scratch, and he did not get much traction. Plus, he's playing for Central Michigan. But he is a player probably not going to get drafted, but he is the kind of guy to keep an eye on as an undrafted free agent. He runs very, very hard. And also, I think he was hurt a little bit too last year. But that's a name to keep in mind. Lou Nichols from Central Michigan. So good for you, Flash Gordon. That might be an undrafted free agent the Bucs bring to camp.
And I'm sure Tony wouldn't have an issue with this because he says Bucs need premium positions in the draft. Safeties and RBs are wasted picks. Well, I disagree about safeties. I think
don't tell Todd Bowles, former
don't
safety,
tell Todd Bowles,
right,
who loves the safety position and currently has Antoine Winfield Jr., who just got engaged recently. Congrats to Antoine Winfield Jr.
Second-round pick.
Yeah, second-round pick.
Yeah,
and Nolan Turner, who was an undrafted free agent. So the Bucs, without question, still have to address safety, whether that means Logan Ryan, Keanu O'Neal. We know Mike Edwards is off the board. Whether they do that through free agency or in the draft or both, which I kind of feel like that's going to be the case. I disagree, Tony. Safety is a supreme position for not only the Bucs, but just in football. Running backs, I agree with the sense that I don't think a running back this year should be anything more than a day 3 Saturday pick. So we're 1 for 2 with our agreement there, Tony.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right on, Matt. Everything I'm hearing is they're looking at running back in day 3. They just signed Chase Edmonds, and remember, Matt, they've got a pair of third-round draft picks already invested in Rashad White and Keyshawn Vaughn, who's in a contract year. So they're going to draft another running back, but probably day 3. This is a good crop of running backs too. Running backs, it's a very devalued position and justifiably so. So you're going to have some maybe 3rd or 4th round talent slipping into the 6th or 7th round just because of the position right there. So I agree with you. And safety too. Let's not forget last year, Lewis Seen from Georgia, safety, was this close to being drafted in the 1st round by the Buccaneers. So it's a position that Jason Lights put a lot of premium stock into. Remember, Justin Evans, former Buccaneer safety, was also a 2nd-round pick.
I really liked him. It sucks that he had the lingering foot injuries, 2 seasons in a row, because he was an exciting player. But, obviously health is part of the game. Scott, you mentioned investments a moment ago. If you're going to invest your money, I think that's important to a lot of people out there. If you're going to invest your money, the best place to do that is with A-Muni Financial.
At A-Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. A-Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Let's get to Colorado at some point, Matthew.
Yes,
it's maybe not until like spring because it's really cold there.
Yeah, we need a couple months.
Yeah, but it's a fun place to go, and it's even more fun to retire there, from what I hear. I've got some relatives that live out there. whether you want to retire to Colorado or anywhere, maybe you just want to stay in Florida, maybe you want to move to Florida. Well, you can help yourself out by giving Immuni a call, right? 1-800-868-6864. Visit them on the web at immuni.com. Managing your family's wealth means more to Immuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning. It means retirement accounts, brokerage and advisory services, college savings accounts for the kids, and insurance. They got 40 years of experience, folks, not just in the Tampa Bay area, not just in the state of Florida, but across the country. That means anybody listening within the continental U.S., you can become an Immuni Financial client yourself. It's that simple. Just do what I did. Give Immuni Financial a call. Tell them Pewter Report sent you, 1-800-868-6864, or visit them on the web at immuni.com. Plan ahead and stay ahead with Immuni Financial.
Let's get to a couple more comments. We're going to talk about your former favorite player. Victor says, I thought Gabbert was a starting QB by Arians. Bruce Arians did famously say that he believed that Blaine Gabbert could be a starter for the Bucs, especially when it was uncertain whether or not Tom Brady would have been back. But Bruce Arians isn't the coach anymore. I think Todd Bowles likes Blaine Gabbert, but is kind of ready to move in another direction for the Bucs offense, especially with Dave Canales there. We hope Blaine ends up somewhere else in the league so we can still see those luscious locks, but it's not going to be with the Bucs.
Still the best looking quarterback ever in Tampa. I think that's pretty safe to say. Handsome man right there, and hell of a backup quarterback. Won a Super Bowl by helping Tom Brady. I mean, that's literally his biggest claim to fame is, and you can ask Tom Brady this. He helped Tom Brady acclimate to this offense in 2020, even more so than Clyde Christensen, because he's played in it before in Arizona, and he just had the knowledge of this offense really well. So, listen, not all superheroes wear capes. Some ride jet skis, and I hope that wherever Blaine ends up, it will be in a place where he can jet ski and maybe save somebody else's life, or maybe save a franchise. Maybe get out there and get a chance. Maybe he can be the next Geno Smith. I don't know. I'm curious to see what Gabbert 2.0 would look like. It's just
I mean, anytime he got playing time with the Bucs,
week 18
generally went pretty well.
Threw a touchdown to
week 18.
Russell Gage.
Important.
Totally agree.
Exactly.
Speaking of quarterbacks,
a little more draft talk. Yes, long lost Glazer. Shout out to LLG. Says Daniel Jeremiah has us, meaning the Bucs, picking Will Levis in his latest mock. Imagine going from Brady to two dorks rocking headbands like they're in middle school. Obviously, talking about the look that Baker Mayfield has going on.
And Will Levis, he likes to rock the headband too.
And Will Levis, who met formerly with the Buccaneers, he said that at the NFL Combine. I keep going back to, and this really isn't necessarily a knock on Will Levis, though I will say I'm not in love with Anthony Richardson. I'm not really in love with Will Levis either. I understand that he didn't have the best talent at Kentucky. I get that he's got like a big size and big arm, but I don't know. I'm not in love with Will Levis where he should be picked 19th overall for the Bucs when there's so many other positions to address. I just keep coming back because I got asked earlier on the show about Hendon Hooker, and it's just like, if you're picking a quarterback within the first 3 rounds, which I advise against for the Bucs, you're essentially saying we are planning on Kyle Trask and or Baker Mayfield to fail, and we already have our next plan. And I just keep going back to, if you plan for those guys to fail, you're not going to have a winning season. And unless Todd Bowles, and to a degree Jason Light, but really Todd Bowles, has a handshake agreement with the Glazers that he's going to be back for the next season after this, it's just way, way too much of a risk to take a quarterback when you have 2 on the roster, and Trask will be here till at least the end of his contract, which is for another season or 2. So
listen, I'm gonna drink some Buccaneer happy juice here. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, now all I see is pewter. All right, my vision has changed. I'm wearing pewter glasses that you can't see. My vision's pewter. What if Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask ends up being a Pro Bowl player this year? Okay, before you think that's crazy, Geno Smith, nobody saw that coming, not even the Seahawks. Okay, so crazier things can happen. Let me just dream or fantasize for a quick second. what if that happens? And let's say Jason Light invests a second-round pick in another quarterback like Hendon Hooker. Now what are you going to do, right? There's already enough people saying Kyle Trask was a wasted pick in the second round. Now you're going to draft another quarterback, and let's say it's Baker, right? And then you still have now you got 2 second-round quarterbacks on the team behind Baker Mayfield. One of them's Kyle Trask, will be in his 4th year, and then you say, "Oh, just trade him." Okay, what are you going to get for him? Nothing. It's a wasted second-round pick, right? And then when is Hendon Hooker going to end up getting some playing time? Hendon Hooker's problem this year, especially in Tampa Bay, is he's not going to even take the field until the start of the regular season.
Right.
Because of the recovery from that ACL injury. And that means no OTAs, no minicamp, no rookie minicamp, no training camp. So he's essentially going to redshirt his first year. So you redshirted Kyle Trask for 2 years, Matt, right? Now you're going to redshirt another guy. I don't know. Like, I'm not dissing Hendon Hooker. I think he's a really good, interesting prospect. If he's totally healthy, he's probably maybe the second or third guy off the board. And probably
I really like Hooker. It's just the injury plays a huge factor into it.
Yeah.
There is a theory, and I don't subscribe to this one necessarily, but there is a theory for franchises that have never truly had a franchise QB that they drafted, and the Bucs pretty much fall into this category.
Yeah.
They just keep drafting one quarterback each season until one of them eventually has to stick. One of them has to hit. I'm not saying the Bucs should do that. It's more of a joke than anything else, but I like Hooker. You can't pick him within the first 3 rounds. And we'll stick with the positivity.
Okay, sure.
Because Marcelo Rodriguez says, NFC South is very winnable. We need to be more optimistic. I don't know if you're talking about us or just the Pewter people in general. I feel like we've been fairly optimistic about the Bucs' chances this season. The Panthers have been kind of big spenders when it comes to free agency. The Falcons to a degree as well, but teams on paper.
The Bucs tried that.
Crap. Yeah.
The Bucs tried that in 2014. They spent like nobody's business. Traded Darrelle Revis away, right? They paid big money for Josh McCown, Michael Johnson, Anthony Collins in free agency. Clinton McDonald actually ended up being the best free agent signing that they had. They spent a ton of money in 2014, right? This was coming off of Greg Schiano's 4-12 season, Jason Light's first year as general manager, and here you've got Lovie Smith coming in, and he watched all these players in his basement during that year off, and he told Jason to sign these players. Jason signed them, and they pretty much stunk, with the exception of Clinton McDonald, who was kind of a backup defensive lineman. So sometimes, you can win the offseason by making the biggest splashes and signing the players to the biggest contracts. Doesn't mean they're going to do anything. I remember Mark Dominic when he signed Carl Nix, Eric Wright, and Derek Ward in free agency. Nix would have been great, but he got MRSA and lost part of his toe. It ended his career. He was a Pro Bowl guard from the Saints. He was a fantastic player, but he got snake bit by MRSA. Then 2 of the biggest free agent busts in history, Derek Ward from the Giants, the running back, and I think he was with the 49ers, Eric Wright, the cornerback, if my memory serves me.
You just wrote about this in your Bucs Monday mailbag.
Yeah. Just because you sign free agents doesn't mean they're going to hit. The Bucs have had their hits. Simeon Rice comes to mind, Brad Johnson certainly, Tom Brady obviously. But there's been plenty that haven't panned out in Tampa Bay and elsewhere.
I always like when you go down memory lane from different Bucs seasons. It's been bad like before the Brady era, so I don't find the joy in the fact that they've been losing all that time up until then. But you're a very good storyteller, and you're good at recalling things. So
a lot of bad memories, memories that I'm in therapy for. I'm trying to either repress or just simply forget altogether that they happened. I know I'm not alone in that. But here's the thing too. I'm going to admit, and I thought Jason Light said this. You were at the press conference the other day, Matt. This is the first time the Bucs have had a quarterback competition, right? And in some time, Jameis was the undisputed guy, right? When he was here, first overall pick. Then you have Tom Brady. I know Fitzpatrick was in there a little bit, but remember, he started only because Jameis was suspended for the first couple of games in 2018. Having said that, I think this is going to be a fun, interesting battle in training camp. How much improvement is Kyle Trask going to make? Is he really going to take to this offense? Is it going to be? It's much easier to learn and digest than Bruce Arians, which was a pretty complicated offense, kind of like John Gruden's. Right? John Gruden didn't have any success with rookie quarterbacks. That's why he didn't like to draft him, because he wanted a veteran who'd been there and done that, had experience, could come in and learn a very complex offense. Same with Bruce Arians. But I'm telling you right now, whether it's the training camp battle or just seeing a brand new offense in Tampa, Matt, something that we haven't seen since before Arians got here, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to wait and see how the chips fall. And I'm excited for OTAs and training camp to see this new play caller and what he can do with this offense.
Oh, I'm so pumped for training camp. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would take everything that the Bucs went through in 2020, 2021, essentially getting Tom Brady. It's better for everybody in Tampa when the Bucs are winning and when they win a Super Bowl.
Right.
And I'm just so excited because, when Brady first gets there, that training camp was like, oh my God, how does this Bucs offense look with Tom Brady at the helm? But then by 2021 and 2020, or last season, 2022, I'm certainly not complaining. But there are competitions that you get into. Last year, it was the offensive line, especially after Jensen got hurt, Hainsey playing center. Yeah. There were a couple competitions to pay attention to, but there's no competition like a quarterback competition. So it's going to be all eyes on Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. So I'm very excited for that aspect of it. I was excited for all the other training camps because the team was great. And it's like, how great can they be?
Yeah.
So
well said.
It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, look at Todd Bowles. Look at that smiling Bowles. He can't wait. He's got the Bucco Bruce insignia on.
Yeah, he had such an awesome out. Like, we put up photos, videos, everything across our social media on pewterreport.com and our social media channels. And it didn't matter if he was talking about Kyle Trask, if he was talking about Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the topic was. Half of the comments, or at least the first comments, was like, look at Bowles in the throwback. Look at Bowles in the Bucco Bruce. And that was totally awesome to see. By the way, speaking of our social media channels, if you're not already following, please do. We have the best Bucs coverage around. Please follow us on our social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. We've had a lot of great stories up about Baker Mayfield, talking to him yesterday, and just an outlook of the overall roster. We're obviously deep into draft season as well, so we'll have a lot of articles over the next month about potential prospects for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And as you are on right now, the Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe to that channel. We got the podcast 4 times a week. We put up various clips, various shorts as well, from everything Bucs related and draft related. So I would really appreciate if you guys could hook us up with that. Please like and subscribe.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing too is funny comment here. Is Leftwich the offensive coordinator of the South Pasco Predators yet? Byron Leftwich doesn't have a job, Matt. He doesn't have a job. It's interesting. Can't even find a quarterback's coaching job. So that's interesting.
Can't he just go to like Marshall, like worst case scenario, be some type of coach there? So like Marshall has to let him back. He gave them probably their biggest moment in school.
Right. Or Marshall's or TJ Maxx or any place that's hiring, really. I'm just saying. All right. So real quick question here before we leave, Matt, because we threw up the picture of Todd Bowles with the Bucco Bruce logo on his jacket here. Here are the Bucs' home opponents. And I'm asking you, I think I know who it is, but I'm asking you, which opponent do you think, this is the home game, right? There's 7 of them this year. So let's see here. There's 8 actually. 8 home, 9 away with the NFC this year. So out of these teams, Jacksonville Jaguars, Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, Philadelphia Eagles, New Orleans Saints, Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears, Tennessee Titans. Which game is going to get that NFC, or I should say the Bucco Bruce?
The Bucco Bruce, the creamsicle jersey.
Right.
Do you think it's going to be against a divisional opponent? Can I ask you that?
I think it's going to be against a former divisional opponent.
You think it's going to be against the Detroit Lions?
I think it's either the Lions or I think it's going to be against the Chicago Bears. I think if they're going to go against an NFC North opponent, used to be known as the NFC Central back in the days.
Yeah.
With the Vikings, the Lions, the Packers, the Bears, the Buccaneers.
I see. Yeah, that would
I
be
think so.
that would be a pretty good time.
Matter of fact, the last time the Buccaneers wore that Bucco Bruce uniform for their official uniform before the new jerseys and stuff came out, I think it was against the Lions in '96, if my memory serves me correctly. I have to go back and look, but
that would be cool.
I think it's going to be against the Lions or the Bears, one of those two.
I think that would be a good connection. I would love to see them against the Falcons, and the Falcons go with their old red helmet with the black Falcons logo and the black jersey. So make them wear a darker jersey in the heat in Florida. Or
I like that.
There's not really a connection to it, but the Titans with their light blue colors offsetting with the creamsicle, I think it'd be pretty easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
No really connection there, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of good options.
I was wrong. It was not against the Lions. It was against the Bears.
Huh.
Sunday, December 22nd. This was the last game of Tony Dungy's first season. They actually beat the Bears and beat them pretty good. This is back when the Bears were good. They beat them 34-19. I remember Carl the Truth Williams had a punt return for a touchdown. They trounced the Bears, and the Buccaneers had a little bit of momentum at 6-10 in Dungy's first year, heading into the 1997 season when they wore the red and the pewter and the skull and crossbones and the red flag for the first time. Started off 5-0 in 1997 en route to a wild card win over the Detroit Lions in 1997. That was Warwick Dunn, Mike Allstott, Trent Dilfer, Horace Copeland, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Hardy Nickerson, John Lynch, Rondé Barber's first season as a Buccaneer. Didn't play very well that year, but it was.
It's okay. It worked out for him. He is now All-Famer. Remains to be seen when the creamsicle jersey will appear this season. We do know it is coming back this season, as Mike Reynolds says. If they wear the throwbacks versus the Bears, I'm going to have Reggie Cobb and Eric Curry hallucinations and need therapy. It's going to be very exciting. It's an awesome jersey. I'm not going to say we all love it. There are a couple people that are anti-creamsicle jerseys. I don't necessarily know why. I think it's awesome for
a game. Right?
Yeah, it's for one game out of out of a 17-game season. And I don't know. I like the variety of jerseys the Bucs have between the red, white, the all pewter. I thought was a great look. And throwing the creamsicle into the mix, I think that would be absolutely awesome. But all the pewter people are absolutely awesome. Again, appreciate everybody watching the show today. That's going to do it for us. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Tara saying thank you everybody for watching. We will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Peace out.
Matt, we did it. It's the best Pewter Report podcast
we
ever.
Did it. Congratulations.